Hi, everybody. Welcome to season 3 of the EUDAIMONIA Connection podcast, the podcast that helps us to seek people that are inspiring because they seek fulfillment and happiness in their life. On today's show, we're going to be speaking to a famous icon of Australian comedy, and that's Marty Fields. Marty, how are you?
Hello, Joe. What a pleasure to be with you.
I am so excited to have you on the show. I've been wanting to have you on my show for a long time because I really consider you to be someone that has a real influential touch on people in Australia through your comedy and through your family background. So I guess you want to just tell us a little bit about your family history?
Sure. I was born into a showbiz family. My parents, Marty Fields and Jellay, were pretty high profile as I grew up. Sort of grew up in the industry. After school, if I wasn't doing sport or music lessons, I would go to Channel 2 because my dad was in a long-running show at that time called Bellbird. And he did that for 12 years. So it was pretty close to where I was going to school. And I'd go there and then he'd drive me home. Knew everybody around the business. When I was born, Mum and Dad were in the middle of a show called Sunny Side Up on the 7 network. And it was a big deal. Like I was on the front page of the paper when they had me. And so many funny people were around me. And as I grew up, I was originally going to be a musician part-time and maybe a lawyer or an advertising for a real job, because when I was a kid, showbiz didn't provide much of a living in Australia, but that sort of changed. So I suppose I kind of evolved into being a comedian and less of a musician, some acting, did a lot of acting stuff, movies, some series here in Australia, and played piano all around the world in piano bars and stuff like that. Now I've done comedy all around the world and done a few comedy movies, comedy shows, TV, all that sort of stuff, written a lot of books, 7 books.
Wow.
I tend to use comedy as a weapon these days. You know, like one guy I hit in the face with one of my books. It's an interesting life. I mean, and it's challenging and grows ever more so each day when people feel be more of I suppose, analyzers than audience. They sit there waiting to be offended, some of them. So you just got to tread a very careful path if you want to survive in the business. But, you know, like anything, I enjoy it. I enjoy the challenge of the industry.
Can I like when you said that you were born into a entertainment family, do you think it was just expected or was it more the fact that you just saw it, that you wanted to follow that path? I
was literally born into this. Mum did Sunny Side Up with Dad in the comedy team while she was pregnant.
Right.
So she fell pregnant and her waters broke at the musicians' picnic. And they used to tell this hilarious story of trying to fold up the picnic furniture and get it into the back of the car, and they smashed it into 1,000 pieces.
Wow.
Could not fold up the chairs and the legs and all that old school sort of picnic table stuff where the legs go down. It just didn't work.
I guess you couldn't have just turned around and said, "Hey, I want to be an electrician." It's just because it was around you and you were seeing all those people around, you know, Australia when your family traveled and you went with them. You probably just had it in your blood, didn't you? It's something that you just did.
I suppose I did, although like most teenagers, you don't necessarily admire your parents. You're exposed to their world. And Mum and Dad's world was television, so I actually had more interest in the technical side of it, directing and floor managing and cameras and all that sort of stuff. That's what really interested me. One of my first jobs was a stage manager at a theatre here in Melbourne. So I liked the backside of it. But as it turned out, I mean, that knowledge that I gained from being interested in all that sort of stuff has really helped me in my career, because there's nothing worse than an actor walking on set and all they do is talk to the other actors. You know, I'm more interested in the crew. The actors give me the shit. So I'm much more interested in chatting to the crew because they're my kind of people.
Yeah.
And that sort of blends into my comedy too. I hate having a fight with the audience. I don't care if somebody heckles me. I'll just ignore them. I've got 1,000 heckle lines I could throw back at them. But I'm not, you know, I don't really care that they want to do that. I suppose the thing about comedy these days also is there's the whole world of social media.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask you, like, if the political correct thing, how that's changed comedy. You know, like, because before we go into the questions, like, I think that's a really important question. How I think that if you watch old 70s and 80s Australian comedy, it was so, I loved it anyway, but it was a bit, you know, people say that's politically incorrect. How does it impact you now in regards to what jokes you tell when you're doing shows?
It dawned on me about 15 years ago that if you wanted to do the same great jokes, all you had to do was turn them round on yourself. So no longer were you talking about a fat lady or a fat guy or an ugly woman or an ugly guy or whatever. You just flipped it on yourself, because
Right. Okay.
people love laughing down. That's why the court jester used to wear the funny hat in the court. He wanted to be the fool. They were known as the fool, not the jester, because people love laughing down at somebody. So most great comedians have got something wrong with them. Like it's either their personality or their look, or they've got some sort of disability, or they only ever talk about being a complete loser. These are the comedians that are really successful, because it's really hard to have a crack at somebody for bagging themselves. And that was the trick, just turning every joke around so it reflects on me rather than somebody else. So you reach in rather than lash out.
Because I was wondering why, like Jimmy Carr is I like Jimmy Carr, but his humor is like, I always wonder why he's still on doing shows, because he does, it's intense, but I think it's because he tells everyone before, this is just comedy, don't take it seriously, you know my humor. And so do you have to sort of warn the audience, or do you think audiences are intelligent enough to know that this is the way it is?
It depends where you are. I mean, I don't do a lot of public work. I only work in the Comics Lounge here in Melbourne, which is actually, according to TripAdvisor, the 7th best comedy venue in the world. So best mates run it, which is great. I can jump up anytime. I'm actually headlining there next week from the 9th to the
well, I'll make sure that I put all that information down on.
Yeah, do that here in Melbourne. But, anyway, it's on television or in a corporate environment, which is 95% of what I do, you have to represent the values of your client. So you'll have a chat to them beforehand saying, are you guys cool with this? Or, you know, and as it goes along, you don't even need to really have that conversation, because you know that your material is not going to upset anybody unless they're really trying to find something they can hang their hat on to show themselves that they are a true believer in peace and everything. People these days find a lot of joy in speaking up for somebody else without being asked. For example, I had a table of blind people had come into the Comics Lounge just about a year ago, and I said to them, can you guys at the front sit down? The people behind you can't see. And they thought it was hilarious. But some guy said, that is so offensive. And the blind people all said, shut up, we're listening.
Yeah. They take it too seriously. But anyway, we need to get on with what we're meant to do. So like I said, they're going to be questions that are chosen by the spinning wheel here, and you just answer them really briefly. Oh, are you playing the piano?
No.
Oh, I could hear piano then. All right. First question. What is the one thing that you find that you are really curious about?
What am I curious about?
Yeah.
I'm curious about space. I'm really interested in outer space and that sort of stuff.
So what do you do with that? Do you go digging and looking and exploring information? Yeah,
I do. And I look at a lot of documentaries and stuff. My job is to gather knowledge, both from a comedic point of view, but also I do a thing on 3AW each week called The Delusionist, which effectively addresses everything we believe to be true is not true. Or most things anyway.
So you're going to go find out all the information about it?
Yeah, common held beliefs. For example, if I said to you, Napoleon Bonaparte, what's the first thing that comes to your mind about his appearance?
He's short and his hand goes into his jacket.
Yeah. Okay, he's short. Now, here's the thing. Upon digging into that, I found out, he was 5'8", which was actually quite
I'm shorter than that. So they get taller than me.
You could be Napoleon. But the reason why he was portrayed as short, for two reasons. He was always around his bodyguards who were 6'3" and massive. So whenever he was pictured or drawn or painted, the people around him were bigger than him because they were his bodyguards. Secondly, the majority of people who painted him were not fans of him.
Right.
So they tried to point out his physical flaws or even create them. So that's the reality. Bonaparte wasn't actually short. It was myth created by his enemies.
So you're curious about facts.
Yeah.
Information. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
All
yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Next question.
Yes, sir.
So, what is one thing in your life that you feel that you regret?
I regret hitting my dog when I was 4 years old with a strap.
Okay, you remember that?
Yeah, very much.
And do you remember why you did it? Do you remember why you did it?
I was trying to be a big man to my mum. The dog wouldn't stop crying in the kitchen, so I got Dad's strap and went out and hit her with the strap and came back and said to my mum, I hit him to stop him from crying. He won't cry now. And Mum said, if I hit you with the strap, would you stop crying? What would you think of me? And I would say, why are you hitting me? She said, that's what the dog just thought.
Yeah.
Dogs, animals, all have feelings. If I pinch you, it hurts. If you pinch a dog, it hurts. If you pinch a cat, it hurts the cat. You need to realize right now that they have just as much right to do whatever they want to do whenever they want to do it. We're not better than.
And so that influenced you, did it? Did it influence your mum saying that at 4 really changed your way that you saw it all?
I'm now patron of the Lost Dogs Home, patron of Animals Asia. I support Whisper. I own 3 bears that have been rescued from bear bile from China.
I want a bear. That's cool. I didn't even know that existed. Send me an email.
Animals
I like that.
Google www.animalsasia.org.
Okay. So what do you consider with I know you got a family of your own and you were a son of a family, but what was your favorite holiday of all time and why?
Oh, goodness. Question without notice. This is a whole cavalcade of questions without notice.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. This show's about not having any notice. So it's all about just you dropping into your consciousness and just telling us what you enjoyed.
Different holidays for different reasons, like the togetherness that
what's the first one that pops into your head?
Going to Mauritius for a corporate event, so it wasn't really a holiday.
Yeah, but you still went somewhere nice.
Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong, which I found hysterically funny because none of it was my fault. So I was embroiled in all these screw-ups, but none of it was my fault. For just an example, they decided, it was a massive thing. I won't tell you the company, but there were 400 delegates. It's a lot of people to fly to Mauritius. It's far away. And they had this tour around the island in 17 minibuses. And my job was to get on one. So they just plopped me in the middle of somewhere. And as soon as one of our minibuses came past, I was to jump on, ask them a quiz, do a few jokes, and then get off. And wait for the next bus to come past. And I did that all day, got off, and not realised that there were no more buses. And I was completely on the other side of the island. Nobody knew where I was. And I had to host the dinner event in about 45 minutes. And I'm looking at my watch. I knew I was far away, and I was in the middle of this poverty-stricken little village. And, you know, they were lovely people and everything, but that was no good to me. So they sent cars out all over the nation to try and find me. And Mauritius is sort of about the size of, maybe 2-3 Phillip Islands. It's about it. It's not large. They eventually found me and brought me back. But they recognised that it wasn't my fault. But, you know, that sort of stuff. I love it.
So what made you, so you love that because you actually love, because I do love that about you. You can find anything funny, which I like, because it makes everything seem good. But so do you like those sort of things that are a little bit quirky, a little bit unusual, rather than going to a beach and just sitting there and reading a book?
Oh, I couldn't do that.
Yeah, I thought you'd say that. Yeah. All right.
It was the shortest book in the world.
Yeah. Next question. We have to move on.
Okay, go on.
So can you let's go back in time, and I want you to tell me how do you remember school? What would be something how would you describe school if you were to summarize it and tell the audience what school meant for you?
School presented the opportunity to get a friend circle that I never had because I was an only child. I had a few friends in primary school, close friends, but not many because I was very different to the demographic. I went to Albert Park Primary, and back then all the kids, 88% of them were Greek. Their parents worked in factories. They were tough. It was a tough school. It's the only school newspaper with an obituary column. I was, you know, really rough every day, you know.
So Albert Park back then was a bit different to now.
Very tough. The most common form of transport was stretcher. Right. So, I mean, it's become lovely now, but back then, very hard school.
So does that mean you found it hard, or was it enjoyable?
Because I was different. So I was in fights and all sorts of stuff. And, you know, it was difficult. And I rebelled. The problem is I've got an IQ really high. So I was surrounded by kids who didn't. And the teachers used to talk down to the class. And I'd be like, I know what you're going to say. Just, you know, can I just go? Because I, you know, I could read, I could write, I could talk.
Did you learn to use comedy back then to get you out of those situations?
No, it got me into situations.
Right. Okay.
Like I would say terrible things to people. You know, like, you know, some guy goes, after school you're going to get it. And I would say, instead of going, oh, well, you know, you're going to get it too, I would say, fantastic, it's been a while, you know. And I'm only, you know.
Yeah. Okay. So when you think of comedians, right? You said something earlier about things being broken or being disabilities or whatever. So when you think about you're a comedian. You are quite funny. You are really good and quick. I have to admit, I love that. But if we were to take all that away, can you, in a very short sentence, describe the real you? What's behind the comedy, you think? Like, are you an emotional person? What type of person are you?
I'm very, very emotional, self-doubting, very loyal, extremely loyal to things. I hate injustice.
That probably came from being an only child, that loyalty.
Perhaps. Yeah, it did. Adore animals. I suppose I love making people laugh, not so much because I love seeing them laugh. It's the pride I have in being able to construct a joke on the spur of the moment that just comes out the right way. People say, if I say something and it's not funny, you say exactly the same thing and it is funny. And I explain to them, it's like growing up in a Greek family. You might have been born in Australia, your parents are Greek. You will be with a Greek accent, even though you've never visited the country. I grew up in a comedy family, so when I say something, I speak in a comedy accent.
Yes.
So I know what line to punch, what word to hit, how to end a sentence, how to make the funniest word the last word. It just happens instantly.
It's very common to hear that thing that you said about being you doubt yourself. It's very common to hear that from comedians. I mean, I look at you and go, you're getting up on stage in front of hundreds. I mean, you've told me about some of your gigs. I'm going, oh my God, it's going to stand up in front of these people and have to look after them and make them laugh. So what is the insecurity then? I mean, like, I don't look at that as insecure. I think that you're really confident. How does that unravel?
I think, well, like anybody, I'm insecure about my appearance, as you must be. I
am big time.
No, sorry, that was so mean. I apologize.
No, come on, this is good. This is good. I love a good laugh at 11 o'clock in the morning.
So I'm insecure about my ability to cope, and things hit me hard. You know, like that last year I had very serious medical issues, and that set me back a long, long way. There's always a reason that something sets me off on a road of anxiety or uncertainty. I got PTSD from the stuff that happened to me last year, and it took me a long time. I was lying on the couch here in the lounge room thinking, I'm never going to be able to do this job again. I don't ever want to go out on the road. I don't know what, like, people would ring me and say, oh, we want to book you for a job in August. It's the end of April, so that's 4 months away. And I'm just saying, no, I'm not available. Because at that point, I could not envisage myself being able to gather enough gumption to get on stage.
Yeah. But that's the beauty of why that's why, even though I'm sorry you went through that, but it's the beauty of what you went through is what makes you stronger. And now that you're out of it, you can see how, you can see how much stronger you are, and how, I don't think a lot of people understand what it means to go through something unless they go through it.
When I came to see you, I had a bag. You were empathetic because you had a close friend that also had a colostomy bag. And this was something I didn't know I was going to have, which is why it rocked my world. And I'd been through a lot. I nearly died, so it was a big deal.
But I remember I remember you still found a way to joke about it, and you were still smiling. And I looked at you and I went, oh my God, this guy has got a really good way of understanding. Even though you were going through pain, you still found something to smile about, which I know that could have been a way for you just to feel comfortable, but I've still found that amazing because I don't normally see that in a session. Normally people just come in and boom. So do you find that helps you, just being a bit funny, being a bit lighthearted?
The way my brain is wired. I find it really difficult not to. This is harder now talking to you without being funny than easier for me.
But you are being funny.
Oh, okay.
All right, we need to move on to the next question because this is
Okay.
like really quick. So,
Can I just say that you said to me something very important?
What?
You said to me, "What do you want to be?" This is when I was at like the depth of everything, and I said, I want to be back to where I was, and you said, "You will be better."
Yeah,
you will be better, and I am better than what I was.
So you get it. That's again. I really do believe that everyone should go through something, shouldn't they? Really, in a way, because that's what gives you that strength. Otherwise, you're just guessing what you can be.
I had 7 operations last year. Towards the end of the year, when my tummy was starting to settle down, everything was great. My cardiologist said, "I'm sorry, you're going to have a heart operation. It involves going in through your groin, and we're going to do some laser work inside your heart. Are you concerned about that?" And all I could think about is what I'd gone through in the first half of the year, and I'm like, "Fuck, hold my beer." This is. I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
And it makes you stronger. It makes you, once you cross that hurdle, you really feel like I don't fear anything now.
Yeah, it makes you just realize that life is short and you don't want to waste it by being scared of something. Yeah. All right. Next question.
Worry about what you get to do.
Yeah. What would be something that no one really knows about you? What's like what's one of your quirks or one of your secrets? Or I would say one of your free cons.
Okay. As an animal activist,
yes,
I'm not a vegetarian.
Oh, okay.
I know.
No,
Yeah.
but do people presume that you are?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Course,
so does that mean that you don't actually eat meat in public?
No, I do. But what I know is that I don't like animals suffering. And having been to an abattoir, and don't do that if you
no, yes, even just watching the things on ABC makes me uncomfortable.
They are scared, but they don't suffer. The bolt in the forehead, it's all over. Like, that's why I do a lot of work in Asia, because for some reason in a lot of countries over there, they feel the meat is better if the animal has suffered. So I'm dealing with issues that would curl the hairs on your neck, and that's what I hate, that sort of stuff. I would never, that sort of.
Has anyone ever called you out on being, is that when you said that this is something that no one knows, I'm guessing that no one really knows, except for maybe your family.
Yeah, well, look, anybody at a restaurant knows.
They're going to know now.
No, okay, something nobody knows about.
No, just like a quirk, something that you feel is for example, some people say that when they're alone, they like to.
Okay, I've got it.
Go.
I love Married at First Sight.
Oh my God, so do I.
How good is it?
But I can't say it to anyone. I cannot say it to anyone because I went on a rampage a few years ago saying it's just trash. And then one day I watched it by accident and I go, oh, I like it. And so it's okay. So you've been watching it then?
You should. They should call it Why These People Still Single.
I know, it's twisted.
The flaws in his personality.
I mean, how funny though is the toe guy and then the woman with a fake toenail. I just love they matched them up on purpose to make that guy uncomfortable. Now,
and they're probably going to started off horribly. It's probably going to finish up to be the happiest couple on the show because they've dealt with all the crap.
Yeah.
The ones that seem to be lovey-dovey at the start are now falling apart at the seams because it takes more than a physical attraction and being from the same country or whatever.
Yeah.
You need to have.
But also, you've got background in television production, and it's all edited really well. I mean, that's the thing that I would hate about that is that people are just pigeonholed into the character they want. Now, I'm not lying. The computer does pick the questions by itself, right? I'm honestly saying that. And the computer says, how do you think your parents would describe you? That came by itself. So what do you think your parents would say if they were here? How would they describe you?
As a hardworking, risk-taking, warm-hearted person. And I actually think, I don't want to pump up my own tyres because my pump's broke. I'm usually pretty good at that. It's actually correct. It's true. I take terrible risks in my career. Things most people go.
I knew your mother, and your mother was every time I met your mum, she would always tell me how proud she was.
Yeah, exactly. And
every time.
And you need to love that because once they're gone, there's nobody else that's going to be your biggest cheer squad than your mum.
Yeah, and I was going to say, how have they influenced you in regards to being the man that you are?
My father taught me to always treat people with respect, even though you may not know if they earn it or not, if they deserve it. It's not up to you to make that call. And be nice to people when you're with them, because you're going to be away from them for a long time. And when you're away from them, they'll be your best agent if you've been nice.
Yeah. And it does show that parents are a big influence on how people turn out. Like, you know, because it's not hard to be compassionate and nice and all that, but a lot of people out there aren't. So having, you know, I sort of...
You can't be socially lazy. You can be lazy and have the shits when you're lying on the couch watching television. But when people are around you, you need to present yourself in a way that's going to make you look good and them feel good. And that's work. It's hard sometimes.
Well, I was just thinking, listening to you, maybe it's, you know, I come a family of 4, and I think maybe that's an advantage of being an only child, is having that, you know, having 4 children to try and, you know, influence would be a bit hard for my parents. I would have loved to have just got the attention and been able to just really connect with my dad and talk properly, versus him having to spread himself out with the other 3. I'm just saying that.
Had ready-made playmates, so you didn't have to develop the skills of inserting yourself into other environments. Whereas,
but you haven't met my siblings. You haven't met my siblings.
No, I haven't. Let's say if we went to the Flag Inn in Deniliquin or something, and I'd go to the playroom, and there were 3 kids there playing table tennis who were brothers and sisters or whatever, I would have to insert myself into that social dynamic in order to have some new friends. And I was able to do that purely by getting good at it. So I suppose, I like to consider myself now, when I'm with somebody, I will try and become what they're comfortable around. And somebody smarter than I described me as a stand-up chameleon.
Yeah, well, I would agree. Like, you are quite, you know, you can be so many things. Like I was saying, when you were going through the medical stuff, you were still able to find your, you know, your sadness, but your happiness and your motivation. And yes, you were also not motivated. So I agree with that. The next question would be, what do you feel is your go-to self-care, you know, thing that you do that helps you with maybe stress or anxiety or the world's pressures? You know, what do you do to do that?
A simple breathing exercise that you can do anywhere. It's 3 breaths in, 5 breaths out. You do it in time to your heartbeat. So you need to settle down enough so you can actually feel your heartbeat. And then you count 3 in, 5 out. And once you've done that for a few minutes, you have an 8-syllable mantra, and it changes every day. I am getting better every day.
And you do that daily?
No. I do it when I need it.
Yeah.
At the moment, I'm bubbling along, worried about somebody else. So I'm looking after them very carefully. It's actually my dog. She might have lung cancer. So
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. So we're sort of dealing with that. I'm very good at looking after other people. So that tends to make my focus. If I have too much time to focus on myself, that's when my anxiety manifests itself, and I'll just go upstairs and lie down and just think about that. Or I'll be in a dressing room before I'm about to go on stage to what I know is going to be a very tricky event. I'll just do like 5 or 10 minutes of that. And nobody doing it. You don't have to close your eyes or look like a dog. You know, you don't sort of you know, or play, you know, beautiful Enya or whatever that shit is. You can just do it in your own mind. So.
All right. We're nearly at the end. So can you just describe what it was like for you to hold your daughter for the first time?
Slippery. Very slippery. And they don't tell you about the smell. Oh, my Lord. Where is that in the book?
Oh, my God, you're funny.
They come out smelling like a... Oh,
of course, they've been cooking inside a belly for all that time. So, but do you consider your one of your big achievements is having a daughter?
I didn't have to do much. I just got a root. Mind you, in my world, that's a big deal. So I can't help feeling my wife did the majority of the work there.
Yeah.
Although,
You're full on.
She got rushed into hospital. It's actually a funny story. I hope we've got time. I was working Nova Park RSL doing a comedy night with a couple of friends of mine. I'll speed it up. I said on stage, I've just got a text from my sister-in-law. My wife has been taken into hospital to have her baby. We have to cut the show short. I'm so sorry. I've got to get out of here. So it was all my shit there, the microphones, the speakers and everything. So everybody helped me in the room. They all got a speaker, they all got a microphone, or they all got this, and then left it all outside my car in the dark, in the car park, in the rain. So I had this big pile of crap that I had to put in the freaking car. And as you know, sometimes that's Jenga for your equipment in the car. So that took longer than it needed to be. And then I get there, and we had our friend Patsy, who's this friend of ours. He's a gay guy, dear friend of Jenny's and mine, and he was never going to go through this childbirth thing. So he was there because I knew I got a bit of a weak stomach. If it all got a bit icky, I was going to hit the floor, and he still needed to be there. So he was sort of there as our co-pilot. We're there up all night. Jenny, because she was epileptic and has syncope, had the epidural in the first trimester, basically. So she was very relaxed and quiet and actually fell asleep during labour. So we turned the TV on, and it's Lou Diamond Phillips and his wife giving birth in an igloo on the Arctic tundra with the snow coming down, and she's screaming, and the bears are outside. And
oh, my gosh.
To Jenny, and she's in Freemasons with silk sheets, fast asleep. It was quite a contrast. And then when she was born, asked me anything about the back of the bed, like all the things behind her head, because I wasn't looking down at the tradesman's entrance. Don't worry about that. It's for Australian, it's like your favourite pub burning down. And when the doctor said, "Do you want to cut the cord?" I said, "Please, I'm not trained.
Let Patsy do it. Let Patsy do it.
Don't use the good scissors," which made him laugh. Yeah. And then he wrecked the stitches, and she had to go back in 4 weeks later and get her pussy cut open again and then stitched again. And it was all my fault.
Gosh. So you love being a father then?
Yeah. And somewhere in the middle of all that shit, I held the baby, which was nuts.
Wow. So you didn't faint?
No.
I personally think that I don't know. I don't understand. I remember the good old days when you used to sit in the waiting room and then hand cigars out. I don't know. I don't understand why that changed, because I don't think I would want to watch it either after watching a video. Like, is it full on? I guess you didn't really hear her scream, did you? You just heard her snoring because she was sleeping. She's
quite stoic, my wife. I mean, obviously she wasn't asleep during the birth.
Yeah,
but she's quite stoic, and she's a country girl. So she grew up on a cow farm, dairy farm. So she was very used to
she would have seen all that stuff all the time.
I mean, she would have been more comfortable in a paddock than in a $3,000 a night friggin' hospital.
Yeah.
Told me that.
Oh, gosh. Okay, last question that I ask everyone, and then that is, how does Marty Fields find fulfillment? How do you know that you're happy?
Task completion.
Okay, so it's not a feeling for you. It's actually something that's finishing.
Yeah, finishing well. A job well done. It makes me very, very happy. Things that drive me batshit are things that I have started but haven't finished.
And do you find that you are more aligned to finish things than you are not finish?
Depends on what they are. I've been writing a screenplay for 2 screenplays. One I've been writing for 22 years. I still haven't gotten it right. Drives me crazy.
Well, after this interview, I reckon that you've got a number of screenplays in your answers. There's a lot of stuff that you could think about. Some of the things that you've said about the holiday in Mauritius. Think about the birth. They're all funny episodes of a show. But Marty, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about your private life and about what makes you happy. And as much as you may not believe me, you are an inspirational person, and you inspire a lot of people that you come in contact with, me especially. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe. What we didn't work out before I did this is how many free sessions this gives me, but we'll discuss that later.
For sure. Okay.
Listen, between you and I, so don't tell anybody this, you are quite extraordinary with the ability to help. A face-to-face session with you has so much more validity in my mind because you've been there. You didn't, you're not a pure academic who's studied the art of helping people feel better psychologically and spiritually and mentally. You've been to the darkest parts, and you really have the empathy that you speak with when consulting with somebody shines through, and it adds so much credibility to what you say.
Stop it! You're making me blush. This is about you. Okay.
Oh, don't blush. Your head will look like a strawberry chuppa chup.
All right. I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you again. So Everybody, thank you for listening to this episode of the EUDAIMONIA podcast. And as you can see, it's going to be a funny farewell. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Until next time, see you later. Bye.